You used to do wrestling when you were a kid, though, right? Up until, what was it, like middle school or something?
Yeah, thereabouts. It was like whenever I was about in second grade. That's whenever I, first started wrestling, and I was big for my age. I was one of the biggest, kids in my
How
class.
tall were you as a second grader?
God, I don't even remember my exact height, but I was taller than everyone in my class, but not as tall as my teachers.
Did you look like a sixth grader in second grade?
I looked more like a fourth or fifth grader when I was in second grade, but then once I really hit my growth spurt, I hit a growth spurt, but I was pretty big. I wouldn't say sixth grader, but anyway, speaking of sixth graders, my wrestling coach was like, this really burly, mean dude that looked like a cross between Super Mario and Dr. Robotnik. But he had
Did
like
he have
this.
the mustache?
He had the fucking Dr. Robotnik mustache. He was like fucking Wario or something. He was like Bizarro Mario, fucking half evil Dr. Robotnik. And he was like the meanest. He was like, Matt Jam, you better get out there and run. And like, if I got second place, I'd have to run 50 laps around the wrestling building. He's like, Matt Jam, I thought I told you to get out there and run. And so if he thought that I was performing less than stellar, he would like, because you could make calls in Scholastic Wrestling. You could say, "Oh, I want to go." Both of us standing on our feet, going head to head, or you could get in the parterre position where one guy's on top, one guy's on bottom.
Yeah.
And then he was like,
favorite.
"You want bottom, Matt Jim?" And so I'd have to get on my hands and knees, and someone would get up behind me, grab their hand around my belly and their arm, and and it was just like, okay. I would just have to stand up really fast and try to get my way out of this jam. But, they had me around the waist. They're just kind of, manhandling me.
Oh my God. The fact that your coach would make you bottom as a punishment for not winning explains so much about you.
But it's a legit, it's the parterre. It's a part of wrestling. It's just, some shit that happens. It's what you do when you're wrestling, But yeah, man, and I used to have this fucking Vanilla Ice haircut. So you remember whenever like he had like those fucking lines shaved in like the back of his head and shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Ice Baby days. Man, every kid in Pawnee, Oklahoma was like, "Oh, that is the fucking jam." And there was this older kid that like went to the high school and he got like the little line shaved in his eyebrow, and I was like, man, I'm gonna do that shit. So I got my mom's Daisy razor like out of the fucking bathtub and tried to shave little lines of my eye. It did not work out well at all. I just like butchered my fucking eyebrow, and here I had this kind of like weird looking flat top with all these like weird lines shaved around in my head, all this crazy geometry, and like here I was with this fucking goddamn, I don't know. I had like half an eyebrow. I mean, it was like an offer I can't read.
Shaved it all the way off.
That's what I was about to say. What was I going to do? Was I going to fucking just shave off one brow and have like this lopsided look I'll never recover from?
Both of them.
Oh, so I could be like the fucking Terminator and like, just fucking have to just, fly no brow. Fuck it.
That's
just
what the goth kids used to do back in the 90s anyway.
I do remember that. And
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I was a little bit too young to try and be goth whenever I was in the third grade with the Vanilla Ice haircut. I just want to wrestle.
Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx.
Hello, this is Sabrina, and I am the gatekeeper.
This is Matt, and I am the Keymaster. And this is Sumo Punx.
Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Sumo Punx. This is going to be a 2-part episode. This part is part 1, and it's going to be about pro sumo. And then the next episode is going to be part 2, and that's going to be about amateur sumo.
So this is going to be kind of like a compare and contrast kind of thing. So we are going to talk about how a tournament's conducted and what goes into a tournament, and a little bit about how it's interwoven into the fabric of Japanese society, but not super in depth or anything. But we'll talk about it.
It'll be like just bullshitting at the cookout.
Yeah, pretty much. So, you guys might be a few beers in, I don't drink, but I'm still going to, show up at the cookout and I see you guys are all carrying on, and I'll probably just start ranting about sumo and probably be so stoked about it and just keep talking about it. So
he's so excited.
Yeah.
Uncle Matt. I'm glad he's found something that he can get excited about.
Yeah.
Here, have some potato salad.
Oh, shit.
So for our listeners who are already into pro sumo or even maybe amateur sumo, and you think that you may already know a lot of this stuff, stick around anyway. You may still learn something, and if not, then at least stick around for all of the dick and fart jokes.
So it's going to be the the technical aspects of how these tournaments are conducted, as well as the cultural aspects. Mm-hmm. But, like I said, not super in depth or anything, but we are, we're bullshitting out the cookout about it. So
yeah, and then we're going to discuss our favorite sumo wrestlers.
Ooh, and we'll have some spicy takes for y'all.
Ooh, so spicy sumo wrestlers. You guys can't see it, but I'm doing like the Italian hand gesture, which I can do because I'm Italian.
It was funny. We were walking around earlier, and I asked her something.
God.
I don't remember what I asked her. She goes, "Wait, what'd you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I was thinking really hard about being Italian."
Oh my God. I was specifically thinking about that one Eddie Izzard sketch where he's like pretending to be Italian and like riding around on the Vespa and just going ciao at everybody. That's what I was thinking about.
But the funny thing is, I could actually picture you doing that.
I should get a Vespa.
You should.
Oh shit.
You're gonna be a mod.
If you guys want to fund my Vespa fund so I can ride around and yell ciao at you.
And start an Italian Bosuzoku biker gang.
Yes! Yes! Bosuzoku Vespa gang. Hit me up on social media. I'll give you my Cash App deets. So here we go. Matt. Where did sumo originate?
Well, I guess in legend, sumo originated with the god Takamikazuchi. He is said to have participated in the very first sumo match, but as far as human beings go, in 23 BC, it was Nomi no Sukune, was instructed by the emperor to deal with Taima no Keihaya, and I think you might have been probably talking sporty, talking some shit. Saying something about how he's the strongest man in the heavens, and Nomi no Sukune, of course, could not have that. So that very first sumo bout was won with a kick.
A kick?
A kick. And
you can't kick in sumo.
Well, it was back in those days a comprehensive martial art before it kind of became I wouldn't say softened, but they kind of made it not as brutal, for a court ceremony, Eventually, it was kind of, sumo was regarded to be entertainment for the gods so that they would bring a good harvest. It was also entertainment for the nobles. And so,
so they had to make it classy.
Exactly. So, kicking someone so hard that you kill them is probably going to be frowned upon in front of the nobles. So.
I don't know. It kind of depends on who you're kicking. So sumo today is also considered to be a pretty classy affair. It's very revered. There's a lot of grandeur involved, a lot of ritual and ceremony. In fact, every aspect of sumo, when it comes to pro sumo, has some sort of ceremony built into it. Even building the platform that the sumo wrestlers fight each other on, which is called the dohyo. Now, this takes 3 days, and it's done by a bunch of dudes using old-timey tools who do it all by hand.
So it's the Yobadashi. The Yobadashi are the attendants of the dohyo, and during the tournaments, they actually work to maintain the dohyo, as the days roll by.
And then once it's built, the main Gyoji will come out to start the ritual to bless the dohyo. Now, a Gyoji is typically your referee for the
your sumo
matches.
referee.
But in this case, he's dressed up like a Shinto priest. And what he does is he digs a little hole right there in the middle, in the top of the dohyo. And he puts things like rice and nuts and seaweed. Oh gosh, I know there's a few things
Cuttlefish.
in there. Yes, little dried
sake.
squiddy pieces and sake. Then he starts singing some prayers. And after he's done singing, everybody drinks the sake. And this is a way to invite the gods into the ring.
And, once the dohyo ceremony is complete and they're actually starting the tournament, the wrestlers all file in down the Hanamichi. It's the little hallway area down to the dohyo, and they do their ring entrance ceremony wearing their kesho mawashi, which are very ornate.
Oh, yes. I've seen some very ornate mawashis. You know what I mean. They look like little aprons, and they've each got colorful designs on them. And oh gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the more memorable ones. There's just so many.
Kiseno Sato had the Fist of the North Star one.
Yes. Oh my god, now you gotta do the thing.
Omae wa mo shindaru.
Yes.
Nani?
Awesome. So yes, they have their fancy kashimawashi, and they're very ornate, handmade, and corporations will pay thousands of dollars to have these things made so that the rikishi will wear them during this ring entering ceremony.
Yeah, they're kind of like a very fancy ceremonial billboard a little bit.
Exactly. A lot of rikishi or sumo wrestlers are actually sponsored by individuals and corporations, and recently Pokemon has been sponsoring the sumo tournaments.
Yeah, so they have people in the Pokemon mascot outfits hanging around. They made these very fancy, ornate kimono that the Gyoji wear. So
they're so cute.
when you're watching the tournament, you could see like these Pokeballs are like embroidered Pokeballs all over the kimonos. It's
They're fancy silk kimonos that are thousands and thousands of dollars, and then they've got just these brocade Pokeballs all over them. They're so adorable.
It's fancy.
It is very fancy.
So while the sumo wrestlers are, parading down the Hanamichi, the little hallway areas, they are wearing their keshimawashi. They go into the dohyo. They have their names announced. The Yobadashi clack these wooden sticks called hyoshigi. Very distinctive sound. So
very rhythmic.
Yeah. They have this routine. They raise their hands to the sky, and then they clap, and they tug their aprons up, and then they file off the stage, and then so the East does it, and then the West comes in and they do it, and then the Yokozuna, they have their own ring entrance ceremony called the Dohyo Iri, and they have two members of their stable with them. So they'll have one that's
their posse.
Yeah. So one is the dew sweeper and one is the sword bearer. And the Yokozuna is wearing a thick white braided rope around himself. And this is called a suna. And a suna is... You'll see it in Shinto temples. You'll see it on sacred objects. And so when it's around the Yokozuna, he is becoming an avatar of the gods. He's performing a religious and spiritual function, and as Yokozuna, doing this dohyo iri, stomping the evil spirits, out of the dohyo, and then he gets down into this squat position, and then slowly starts to arise by kind of shimmying his legs back and forth.
It's very elegant. It's
very
like
elegant.
It looks like a fancy
crane.
bird.
Yeah. And, there's two different schools. There's the Unryu style and the Shiranui style. And both of the different schools have their own style of tying the suna in the back. And, they perform the dohyo iri in a stylistically different way. And so different stables will say, well, it's our tradition to do the Unryu style, or it's our tradition to do Shiranui style. So there's a whole lot of heritage, I guess, I could call it, whenever they're performing these rituals.
Yes, and then after the entrance ceremonies have been done, then it's time to start preparing for the actual fights.
So when the matches begin, the Rikishi, one will come from the east side, one will come from the west side. They'll step onto the dohyo and they start with some shiko, some stomping to stomp out the evil spirits.
Yes, ritual stomping, something I think we should have more of here in America.
And so they rinse their mouths out with chikara mizu, that's the power water, and they towel themselves off. So they're trying to be as pure and clean as possible, and so they throw salt in the dohyo so everything is, purified.
Some of the way that these guys throw salt, though, are very extra.
Teritsuyoshi with his softball of salt, just
God, how does he even get that much salt in one hand?
I know, right? It's he packs
and
it on.
He throws it straight up, and then it just snows down on
The
everyone.
Yobadashi are just damn it, it's Teritsuyoshi again.
We
gotta sweep that up.
We gotta make sure that we bring out 2 buckets of salt for this batch.
So they'll step onto the dohyo. This is when you'll start seeing the pre-bout rituals, and that's one of my favorite parts because every wrestler has their own. I used to call it their thing. They have a thing that they do, and Takayasu had one of my favorite where he would just kind of do this flex. It was
he'd do his tough guy shrug.
Yeah, he would be like, and it was just and start slapping his belt all hard. And then I think the best one ever, Takami Sakari, because he just looked like RoboCop. He just looked like this angry bzz, 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 don't move, creep, salt, and just walking her. So I don't know, he just did this kind of flex thing where he was gripping his hands and flexing his lats and his arms, and it was just damn it, and then he RoboCop back into the dohyo. That guy didn't fuck around. Takami Sakari had he had a vibe. That was some hardcore shit.
I don't know. I think my favorite one is probably Ura. Just because he goes into the ring and he starts doing his preparations, and he kind of does this sniff, and he waves his hand like a sommelier sniffing a fine wine. And I'm just sitting there wondering, what the fuck is it that he's sniffing? Is it pheromones in the air?
He's just got to take a whiff.
What is it? He's smelling the scent of victory or something.
But Hokuto Fuji, I just love, he just slaps the piss out of himself. Everyone just and just slaps his face, and then he kind of flexes. And when he flexes, that dude's ripped. You could see every single muscle rippling underneath. Yeah, that dude is fucking. I wouldn't fuck with Hokuto Fuji in a dark alley or anywhere ever, well lit even.
I don't know. I might. At a certain point, the referee or Gyoji will yell "Matanash" to signal to the wrestlers that they need to hurry up and finish strutting around and
it's time to push.
Get ready to begin the fight. And I wanted to talk a little bit about who the Gyoji is and what he symbolizes. The Gyoji is considered to basically be the messenger of the gods. This is the guy who determines who wins a sumo match most of the time.
And he wears a tanto, like a dagger, in the sash of his kimono, and that's supposed to symbolize his willingness to commit seppuku, if he makes a bad call. There's not a whole lot of that now, but there's the 4 ringside judges, the shimpan.
Yes, the shimpan. There's one shimpan that sits on each side of the 4 sides of the dohyo, and they also watch the fight, and if they decide that the gyoji has made a bad call, then they will call a mono-e, where they get together and discuss, okay, who actually won this fight?
An instant replay definitely comes into play around.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Modern technology has definitely made it a lot easier to figure out who actually won.
Yeah, they'll say, well, the Gyoji's verdict stands, or the Gyoji's, we reverses the Gyoji's decision, or every now and again it'll be Tori Naoshi. Rematch.
Yes, rematch.
Oh, those poor guys. You could see poor Takakeisho huffing and puffing like, I don't want to go again.
You can definitely tell who has higher stamina when that happens. For sure. And then the Gyoji kills himself. No.
Jesus.
That doesn't happen in modern times. Did it ever happen in the past?
I'm assuming that it may have at one point or another, since they wore, the tanto to kind of symbolize that. So.
You know what? We'll Google it and get back to you guys.
So after the Gyoji calls Matanash, they approach the Shikurisan, the starting lines. They squat down and try to synchronize their breathing with each other, and they're looking at each other, trying to psych each other out.
Looking at each other real mean.
And the Gyoji would say, "Te wo tsuite." That means put both fists on the ground. That kind of signals that they're ready to start the tachiai, to start the initial charge. But really, it's whenever both wrestlers are synchronized. And they kind of know between each other when the tachiai is supposed to start, and then you just hear that meat smack. And then the Gyoji's like, Hakyoi! He's like, put some spirit on it.
And that's when the action happens. So the rules for winning a sumo match are super simple. If any part of your body besides the soles of your feet touches the ground, you lose. And if any part of your body, including the soles of your feet, touch outside the circle, you also lose.
Yeah. And so there's no punching, no kicking, no elbows, no eye pokes, no pulling hair. But you could trip your opponent and you can slap the shit out of them.
Oh, yeah. They slap the hell out of each other in pro
They
sumo.
do.
It's
The
like they're trying to
harite.
slap the soul out of them or something.
Seriously. So, and you can get disqualified if your mawashi falls off.
And if you remember, that's the loincloth / belt that the sumo wrestlers wear.
Yeah, and if you lose it mid-match, well, you lose. So the last time that this happened was in the year 2000 at the Mei Natsubasho, and it was Asanokiri and Chiyo Hakuho.
More like Natsubasho.
Oh. So before that, it hadn't happened in 83 years, so we went almost a whole century with no hanging dong. Then dong was hung.
Then dong was hung. And speaking of dongs, pro sumo tournaments typically only happen in Japan, but the first tournament ever outside of Japan was held at Prince Albert Hall in London, England in 1991.
You just wanted to say Prince Albert.
I really did just want to say Prince Albert. I wanted to continue the dick jokes. We got to give the fans what they want.
It's true.
Which is lots of dong.
So there, you can get all the dong you want at the 6 sumo tournaments a year called Honbasho, and they happen in January and March and May and July and September and November.
Every 2 months, basically.
Every 2 months. I didn't have to list it off, but I did anyway. So what are you gonna do? Fight me? Bring it on.
Now you're threatening us.
So yeah, 6 tournaments a year, 15 days each tournament, and in their off time, I wouldn't even say off time, but when there's not tournaments, they're training every day. They live kind of like monks, like a very ascetic lifestyle in these stables, and it's very hierarchical, so it's all according to rank. So a lot of the lower ranked wrestlers are going to be attendants. They're called skibitos. They have to cook everything, and they have to clean everything, and have to do everyone's laundry, and and they have to eat last. So you want to work your way up. You want to work your way up in ranking, because when you get up in rank, you get to eat before everybody else, and then you don't have to sleep in the communal room. You could actually start getting your own room. And if you get to Sekitori level, which is, Juryo and above, you get a salary, and your stable master just might allow you to date.
Oh, yeah. Or even marry.
And marry.
See,
so-
that's something that a lot of people outside of Japan don't really realize is that these wrestlers dedicate their whole life to sumo. Every move that they make, they have to get permission to do it. Every move. Even just going and hanging out with friends in public.
And they got pretty locked down with the pandemic as well. So it was sometimes I'm just like, those poor guys, and then they couldn't do social media. It's like, man.
Yeah. The social media ban, I think, was...
Thanks, Abby.
I really hope Abby has learned his lesson.
I do too. I think he has. He seems like he's matured, and since he's changed that Mawashi color, he got a little bit thicker. He's a little bit more. He's more stoic.
Now give him Twitter back.
And shibari ropes.
Yes, please give Abby back the shibari ropes. God, we're gonna get so canceled for that. Circling back to the ranking system, why don't you tell us how that works?
All right, so the rankings are, there's Jonokuchi, which is the very first lowest
Bottom
level.
rung.
Yep, the bottom. That's where the 15-year-olds are, and people that are just, recruits, that's where they start out at. Then you might get to Jonidan, and you'll start to notice people in Jonidan are probably starting to have the top knot grown out. When you get into sumo, they shave your head, and then you start growing out your hair for sumo to grow your chonmage. And after
What's
Jonidan,
Chonmage?
the top knot. That's their samurai top knot.
Oh, I just never knew the word for it.
Yeah, chonmage.
Chonmage.
So after Jonidan, they'll move up to Sandanme, and that's the fourth highest division. It represents the first breaking point in the treatment that a wrestler receives. So he's not the bottom of the barrel anymore whenever he gets to Sandanme.
That's good.
Yeah.
Working his way up.
Yeah. And then when you get to Makushita, that's whenever you get to be on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a cool spot to be in. And from Makushita, once you get a promotion for there, you get to Juryo, and that is whenever that's when the magic happens. That's when you get a paycheck. You probably get some attendance. You get to wear, the fancy colored mawashi, the fancy silk luxury mawashi. And there's a specific type of chonmage, the ginkgo leaf top knot, that only Juryo and the upper division, Makuuchi division wrestlers can wear. Because you'll notice, in the Jonidan and the Makushita, they have a different style of chonmage.
And then in Makuuchi, that's broken up into different sections as well.
Yeah.
That top division, it starts at, what's the ranking in the first?
Maegashira.
Maegashira. So it starts at Maegashira, and then...
So you have, I think it's about I think they go up to what, Maegashira 17, Maegashira 18. It just depends on
18, I think, was
yeah,
last
and
I
there's
saw.
East and West. So Maegashira 1 through 18 East, Maegashira 1 through 18 West, and they're like the rank and filers of the upper division. And we're talking about the upper crust, maybe only 100 out of
top of the pyramid.
maybe 100 out of 600 of these wrestlers in all of sumo, can make it to this upper division. And to clarify, what I mean is that out of 100 salaried sumo wrestlers, out of 100 sekitori, only 42 will ever be part of the Makuuchi division.
Right.
And so the Maegashira, even though they say rank and filers, they really are elite wrestlers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, former college yokozunas, former amateur champions.
These guys have earned their place at the top.
Definitely. And so above the Maegashira, you get to the Sanyaku ranks. And there is Komusubi. Komusubi is referred to as that meat grinder position. Mm-hmm. So when you get to Komusubi, they throw you against all of the hardest, meanest rikishi at the beginning of the tournament. So you lose like your first 7 days. And then once, they send you down the lower rung during the second week of the tournament, you're just so beat up. Can you make your kachikoshi?
Yeah, can you prove your mettle?
And so above the Komusubi would be Sekiwake. And Sekiwake, you could get promoted to Ozeki. And that is people's dreams. Once upon a time, that was actually the highest rank in sumo. That's why it's called the Sanyaku. Mm-hmm. So Komusubi, Sekiwake, Ozeki. And recently, recently is maybe a couple hundred years compared to the 1,500-year long history of sumo, they started giving yokozuna licenses. And that's where you start seeing they do the doyo iri, they wear the tsuna. And so these rich families would sponsor these yokozuna licenses. And then yokozuna just kind of became, the grand champion of all of grand sumo.
Yep, they're the top guys. They are the champions of sumo.
And they are almost like gods on earth. And I say this just like as a sumo wrestler as well, because, whenever I've wrestled some pretty intense folks before, and I've seen some pretty intense matches happen, and it just amazes me to see the strength and the balance and the grace and the agility of all of these guys, especially when you've seen people that aren't as powerful, in real life. Still, it's just like awe-inspiring.
So the current yokozuna is Terano Fuji.
Terano Fuji.
But we did recently have another one. And yes, there can be more than one yokozuna at a time. That was Hakuho, but he has now retired.
And his ring name has changed. So it's not, he doesn't even have it's called a shikona. So he's not Hakuho anymore. He's Magaki Oyakata.
And his plan is to start his own sumo stable, a very modern, state-of-the-art, multi-million yen sumo stable right there in Tokyo.
And once you get into sumo and kind of the drama of a lot of this stuff, there was a whole lot of hell involved with Hakuho. And
yeah, he had to go through a lot.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. So some yokozuna of note would be Taiho. Taiho was regarded as the greatest rikishi of the post-war period.
There was also Chiyono Fuji, the cutest yokozuna, and widely believed to be the one who made sumo popular again.
Well, yep, definitely during the 80s, people loved Chiyono Fuji, the wolf.
Then there was Akebono, who was the first non-Japanese yokozuna. This was a big dude. He was like 6'8"
Something like that. He was huge.
God, just so huge and imposing.
And then Hakuho, who is from Mongolia, and he was recently naturalized as a Japanese citizen, which is why he can own elder stock and become an oyakata now. So Hakuho, stable master, the oyakata. So he's won a record of 45 Emperor's Cups, and he considered Taiho, to be a mentor of his, and Taiho won 33, so he shattered the record, and he's widely regarded by a lot of people as being the greatest yokozuna of all time. So if you want to stir up any sumo fans, maybe make that claim, or maybe just mention, is Hakuho really that great? Oh, that's guaranteed to stir some pots.
I was going to say, this is where we're going to get all of the angry Twitter DMs. But, I still have that folder full of cloacas ready.
All right, so since you've been on this, we've been in the sumo watching adventure together, who would you say is your favorite rikishi of the moment?
Oh, God, do you really want to make me choose?
Yes.
Right now, I think Ura is one of my favorites, just because... God, he's acrobatic.
Very just whoosh. I don't know what this dude is, and he bounces everywhere. Like his body just moves and bends. He's like a wacky waving arm inflatable tube man. But then he gets knocked over and he bounces off the dough. I'm surprised he doesn't like break something. But yeah, he just kind of sits up all smiley.
People say he's like Winnie the Pooh.
He's
just kind of roly poly like that, but he's also very agile.
He is
just extremely agile, and he pulls off these extremely rare and intricate moves, and even if he doesn't win, it still looks really cool.
Yeah.
And he always seems to have a very, very nice temperament.
Yeah, he really does. And I don't know, like, if we're talking about temperament, I kind of like Daisho. I just love those faces that he makes. He's just so intense, and he just seems like he just has this, like he's got steam blowing out of his ears, and he's just like, his arms are just flailing, and his combat faces. He's just, I just love watching Daisho just pound away at people. He's just pushing the shit out of everybody. It's like, you're going against Daisho, you're just going to get knocked the fuck out of the way. Unless it's Terunofuji.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've always really liked Abi as well, even though he really disappointed me by breaking COVID protocols.
Yes.
As an immunocompromised person, that was very heartbreaking. But I feel like being knocked down to, where was he knocked down? Makushita, yeah. I think that probably gave him some time to think about that. And
yeah, that means he lost his salary, and he was living outside of the stable. He had to move back into the stable with all the guys. And if Makushita,
was
I
he
think
married at the time?
Yeah,
I mean, he's probably still married.
He's married, but he had to sleep in the communal rooms.
So long,
with the
wife,
Makushita guys.
I'm gonna go sleep with these guys.
And
but
so
I think that he probably has learned his lesson, and the fact that he was able to work his way back up to the Makuuchi division, and in this Lost Basho did so well. Like, a lot of people are saying that they could see Yokozuna in his future.
Yeah, definitely
At least
Ozeki. Yeah.
At least Ozeki.
Oh.
Then there's Inho.
Oh my god, I love Inho. So he's one of the smaller pixie wrestlers, and he just
also very squirrely.
Very, very squirrely, and he gets low. He does a lot of leg trips, leg picks, and sometimes it looks like he's just carrying people out of the dojo by their leg, like he's holding them gravity defyingly in the air and just hauling them out of the dojo. And whenever he was last in the Makuuchi division, I think people just kind of got him figured out. So he's currently back down in Juryo, but he's doing really well. And I can tell that he's getting his mojo back. I know he's going to be back.
Oh, yeah. Always love watching Inho.
Yeah. And then, of course, Terunofuji, the Terunosaurus himself.
That is the current Yokozuna.
And I love this guy. You know, he's had a rough time of it. So he had some busted knees, and he was doing really well. Was it 2017? I think it was around 2017. Him and Ura both had their knees go out, and they were both in
very
really
common.
Yeah, they were in really good spots in 2017. But Terunofuji had to have a surgery. It was a pretty major surgery on his knees, and he had some health issues. He got diabetes. And so he decided he was going to start lifting weights and start eating a little bit better, kind of taking charge, taking control. So he had to sit out a little while, and he went all the way down to the bottom rank. And I mean, you know, where the 15-year-olds are. And he just had to work his way back up, you know, after his knees healed. And he started lifting weights, and that guy is a beast. I saw some YouTube shit of him, like I'm proud of myself with my, 250 pounds leg press. He's like 1,500.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's seriously. I'm like, okay.
Love the toilet vocals there.
I aspire to get that beastly. So, but yeah, he worked his way all the way back up, and now he is Yokozuna.
He's
seriously
the only Yokozuna currently.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that's fucking inspirational. And I want to be like Terunofuji when I grow up, except I'm like older than him.
Hey man, you're never too old for
True.
most things.
True.
I have a question though. What happens if a pro sumo wrestler decides they don't like that lifestyle, but they still like sumo wrestling, and they give up pro sumo and want to go to amateur?
Oh, well, most of the time, a lot of the Rikishi, especially, in the higher divisions, they'll just retire, or they'll become stable masters like Oyakata, or like coaches, and some kind of supporting role in the JSA. But other guys say, like, if you were like in Jonidan or Jonakuchi, and you're just like, you know what, man, this shit, this ain't for me. I'm tired of sleeping, with all these dudes snoring and, farting around. And so I'm going to go either open a Chanko Nabe restaurant. But you know what? I still love doing sumo. I think the rule is 2 years. You have to wait 2 years following your exit from pro sumo before you can start doing amateur sumo again. So there's actually a few.
So they can go back to amateur.
Yeah, you can go back to amateur. So there was Soslan. He was Wakanoho, and whenever he left, he waited a little. I think he's involved in a training capacity these days, and I saw some Instagram shit. It was like him and Jordan Sykes. Jordan Sykes, one of the amateur heavyweights in the U.S. I saw Soslan just toss this kid like a sack of potatoes was. It was fucking awesome. It was like a kaiju battle. It was in a backyard dojo that Souslan had built, and it was good work, good craftsmanship. It was awesome to see them, breaking in this dojo properly, and I'm glad I got to see it. But yeah, so Souslan he did some amateur sumo. Oh gosh, what was it? I think it was the 2019. We saw him on that YouTube video. Yeah, he was pretty brutal. And then there's Biamba, of course. Everybody knows Biamba. R.I.P. But Biamba was, he did pro for a little while, and then he really made a name for himself in amateur sumo and just bringing sumo to the masses.
Yes. And a lot of the time, amateur sumo wrestlers can go pro if they're recruited by a stable. There is the issue more recently where each stable can have no more than one foreign rishi. Not to mention the fact that pro sumo does not allow women, even though there are a lot of amateur sumo wrestlers who are women. But as far as what it takes to be an amateur sumo wrestler, we will be getting into that in the next episode, part 2. And that is the end of part 1. Part 1 being about pro sumo, and then part 2 will be about amateur sumo, because like any good punk rockers, we had to release a split. So stick around for part 2 about amateur sumo. That's going to be a real fun episode, especially since we have an amateur sumo wrestler hosting this show.
Yeah, I hang out with them sometimes.
Yeah, he knows some of those people. So, any last words?
Oh, yeah. What have you been listening to during sumo practice?
Oh, yeah. We got to do that part of the show. Well, I don't practice sumo, but I can tell you what I've been listening to while scrolling through Instagram looking at sumo buns. I think I want to talk about one of my favorite bands, which is WOLFBRIGADE. Because what isn't awesome about a bunch of crust punks obsessed with wolves and shit? Have you ever fantasized about being railed by 14 werewolves behind a Waffle House dumpster? If so, then WOLFBRIGADE needs to be on your radar. In Sweden, where they're from, the genre of music that they play is called Kang. Am I pronouncing that right?
I think so, yeah.
K-A-N-G.
Yeah.
It reminds me of those dog toys that you put peanut butter in. It has a hole, you stick the peanut butter in there, and then they lick it out. I think werewolves would probably be pretty interested in that, too.
Yeah, that checks out.
I want to talk a little bit about their most recent album first, which is called The Enemy Reality. It was released in 2019, and the whole album has a very Motorhead kind of feel to it. Yeah. But like updated and more brutal, like maybe if Motorhead wanted to dip their toe into some death metal or something. Now, I tend to think of songs I like as little self-contained stories playing out in my head as I listen to them. Yeah. Specifically, the track Wolfman off this album makes me imagine some werewolf dude surviving a nuclear apocalypse and getting real fucking mad about it because he was just chilling, gnawing on some bones or some shit, looking up easily rippable pants on Amazon. When all of a sudden, some careless humans drop a nuke on his Waffle House. And now he has to exact his revenge by eviscerating the throats out of a whole ass army. It's an energetic and driving battle anthem. Definitely something you want to be playing if you ever get in a fight. Yeah. My favorite album, released in 2017, is called Run with the Hunted. And the absolute best song on this album is Warsaw Speedwolf. This track is unrelenting. The story that plays out in my head when I listen to this is a pack of wily wolves living in the Warsaw ghetto, always one step ahead of those Nazi bastards, murdering them in dark alleyways with their teeth, and then bolting away to sabotage the machinations of their destruction, undermining their occupation at every step, death constantly nipping at their heels.
Fuck yeah.
This song goes into a full D-beat sprint and only slows down for a guitar-chugging bridge before bolting off at full speed again. The melody is a bit melancholic, similar to one of my other favorite bands, Tragedy. You know I love Tragedy.
Yeah.
For a total package that always has me screaming along. This is the type of anthem that I listen to when I need to get amped up for an impossible task that may be the end of me, but god damn it, nobody is going to tell me that I can't do it. Makes me feel like a goddamn anime protagonist. So you can probably find Wolf Brigade all over the internet.
Pretty
I know they're
much.
on Spotify, they're on YouTube.
They got a Bandcamp.
They got a Bandcamp. You can go to their Bandcamp and buy an album.
Do
or
Bandcamp-ly
do
things.
Bandcamp-ly things. I don't know what people do on Bandcamp. That's too mainstream for me. And you can also find us on a few different places around the internet now.
Yep. We're on the damn Instagram, the
Yeah.
damn Facebook.
Our Instagram has been getting a lot of follows lately.
Yeah.
People seem to like it.
It's Sumo Punx with an X.
Sumo Punx with an X. Instagram, we got a Facebook, we have a YouTube channel, which is probably where you're listening to this.
And you can send us, veiled threats, criticisms, and insults on Twitter at Punx Sumo.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of
It's
messed up
okay.
the Twitter account, but I still have that folder full of cloacas. So bring it on. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Ow, ow, ow. Ow.
Wolfman's got nards.